just happened to look up. See, you probably have the same thing I have. You have a lot of vacant space, and so all these people, yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. I moved it to three. Yeah, uh-huh. Okay. Yes, you are. Well, liking it and being able to are two different things. You're a good public speaker. Yeah. I got it. But you're okay with my with Candace Sublet?
Yes, is that the one who's
Be the ED?
ED? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. All hands on deck.
Bet. Do you mind just throwing this? Now you know you're not supposed to do that. Say yes. And you know you're not supposed to do that, so you shouldn't have done it. So okay. I was so mad about those soccer fields, and then they looked at me like I was stupid because I was new. Yeah, they looked at me like I was like, I don't know. No one in there.
Okay, council, I'm going to call our work session to order. Today is August 19th, all day, and I'll turn it over to Jay Chop, our city manager.
Good afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and just get started since we're running a little late. On upcoming and recent events, I don't have anything specific to announce. On the organizational updates and employee recognitions, I do want to update the council. It's public now that we have a new economic development director, Jessica Rogers. She'll be joining us next month, and we'll have a formal introduction to the city council here at an upcoming council meeting. On the employee recognition side, we do have a few. I'd like to call up Sally Trotter and Marilyn Marvin to start.
Thank you,
So they
City.
can recognize an award that our folks did around this building, and a lot of the folks standing here are part of those teams.
Go ahead, you can start.
I'm not Sally. I'm Kevin Gunn. I'm the IT Solutions Director. And we are recognizing Sally and Marilyn Marvin's leadership in the retrofit of this beautiful facility that we find ourselves in today. This is a gem of the community. It took a lot of hard work to get us to where we are today, to change a single-tenant office building into this community gathering place that we have. And so we were submitted, Sally submitted this effort to the Best of Texas Awards, and lo and behold, we won for Best Workforce Initiative as joint submission for IT and property management. So we have a few of our employees here today. We hope that you would join us in recognizing their effort. It truly did take tens of thousands of hours of work from these employees that you see here today. And so it's right that we recognize them for that effort and for this great award that we received from Government Technology. So thank you, Council, and thank you to all the employees you see here today.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all. We have I think, the best city hall in America now, and it's because of all y'all's hard work. So appreciate it. Next, I'd like to call Midori Clark up to make an announcement.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Midori Clark. I'm the director of the Fort Worth Public Library, and I am thrilled to introduce our new Library Assistant Director of Operations, Sherry Knight, who started on June 30th. Sherry holds a bachelor's degree in English from the University of Texas at Arlington and a master's degree in library science from the University of North Texas. Her extensive library career includes positions at the University of Texas at Arlington Library, Northwood University Fort Worth Public Library as a cataloger in the mid-90s. And just an interesting fact there, she rode the Tandy Center subway to the downtown library every day. And most recently, she joins us from Euless Public Library. She joined that city in 1996 as a cataloger and progressed through various leadership roles. And she eventually became the library director and led the Euless Public Library through a transformative reimagining of services, overseeing a major remodel, staff reorganization, and a shift toward a more collaborative and innovative workplace culture. She's involved with a lot of different library associations across the state, and just a couple of little tidbits in her personal life. She's married and has 19-year-old twins who are currently in college. She's an avid traveler. She really likes solo adventures and has been known to hop on a plane and take a spontaneous day trip to explore a new city. She also finds a lot of rejuvenation in hiking and forest bathing, and she had to give us all a little lesson on exactly what forest bathing was, and we were really excited to learn about it. I hope you will join me in welcoming Sherry to our incredible team at the City of Fort Worth.
Thank you. Thank you, Midori. I'm very thrilled to be here. And just another fun fact about me, my great-grandmother actually worked for Fort Worth Public Library in the 1910s when it was a Carnegie Library building. And that is where she met my great-grandfather. So I have told the staff here, it's definitely in my DNA to be back here with the best public library system in America, along with the best city hall in America. So, well, thank you.
All right, next I'd like Casey Best to come up and introduce the new assistant director as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce to you Keisha Light. She is our new Assistant Director over Administration for the Neighborhood Services Department. This is a brand new position for us, and part of the reason for it is that we really wanted to highlight the importance of our grants management functions, workforce development, and then also our planning and reporting functions. She did not give us a forest bathing lesson when she came, but she does have a varied experience. She is a planner by trade. She most recently was an assistant director of planning for the city of Denton. She also worked in Plano. She has experience with CDBG, neighborhood development, and so we're really excited about her wide variety of experiences. She completed her undergraduate education from the University of Louisville in business. She also has a master's degree in city and regional planning from the University of Ohio. And if that's not enough, she's currently pursuing her master's degree in HR management from Western Governors University. Just kind of an example of some of the things that she will be working on. The Neighborhood Services Department, we have nearly 40% of our employees are eligible to retire in the next 5 years. And so Keisha will be tasked with workforce development, leadership development, and succession planning. And so she started in July. She's already off and running, and she's making some changes, and so we're happy to have her here.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to be here. I'm thankful for the opportunity and looking forward to serving the Fort Worth community. Thank you.
Thank you, Keisha.
Next, I'd like to call up Marilyn Marvin to introduce a new member of her team.
Good afternoon, Council. I am honored to introduce Stuart Young as our Assistant Director in Property Management over Real Estate. He comes to us from the city of Arlington, where he had an 18-year career, and most recently as the real estate manager, and he has a wide range of experience. Right away in easement acquisitions, property leases, cell tower leases, oil and gas programs, economic development negotiations, and many more. He has a he has a Bachelor of Public Administration and a Master's in Public Administration. He's been here for 2 weeks, and he hit the ground running. He has already started meeting with people across the city to understand what their pain points are and how he can improve the process. And I am thrilled that he is now a part of our team.
Mayor and Council, it's a pleasure. I look forward to becoming work in the city of Fort Worth and reach out to all our businesses and residents, and I appreciate the opportunity very much. I'm very proud. Thank you.
Next, I'd asking Sana Syed to come up and make a couple of announcements around our communications public education folks.
All right. I have a lot, sorry. I need to fill it up. Okay. Well, Mayor Parker, Council, City Manager Chapa, happy to join you today for some special recognitions. I'm pleased to announce to you all that Sharon Gamble has been promoted to Assistant Director of the Communications and Public Engagement Department, leading our customer care division, which includes the My Fort Worth app and 311. Sharon, would you like to join me up here? Sharon manages about half of the department. For those who don't know, about 23 employees. She has provided transformational leadership to this division since 2012, growing and expanding the work each year as new technologies and opportunities become available. She established 311 and My Fort Worth as an award-winning industry leader that other cities seek out to learn from when they're building or improving their customer care tools. Additionally, her data-driven approach to customer care workflows have positioned her to support multiple other city departments in improving their processes and resident satisfaction with services. She does all of this with a lean budget, which I know makes Jay very happy, and a commitment to never leaving a problem unsolved. As Fort Worth continues to grow, efficient and effective customer service tools will be vital to keep Fort Worth a high-quality city, and Sharon is a person who wakes up every day thinking about how she will do that. Please join me in congratulating Sharon, who would like to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Sana, very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and City Manager for always supporting us. I'd like to recognize and invite the team that makes magic happen to stand. My Fort Worth and 311. My Fort Worth and 311, we work diligently to provide streamlined services to our residents and internal customers. We support 39 departments and divisions across the city with the My Fort Worth system and 311. We have built 811 service types. That's crazy, just FYI. and have received over 2.5 million requests since implementation. The 311 Contact Center has grown over the past few years to enter a little over 2 million requests, averaging 315,000 requested a year through multiple channels. We chat, we text, we email, and we answer calls to serve the city of Fort Worth. We invite all of you to visit our center. I'll give you directions. to learn about the system, see our processes in action, and listen to our residents. We have much in store for upcoming implementations, including but not limited to AI to provide a quicker response to answers to questions and routine questions, and to direct the call to the right source without pushing a button. We look forward to seeing you at 311.
Congrats to Sharon and her team. And as you mentioned, please go see the call center. It's amazing how hard they work, and it really is a great perspective on how busy every department is, but how integral you are as kind of the nerve center to make all that happen. So Sharon, I can't think of a better AD. Congratulations.
All right, we also have some exciting awards to share with you all. This year, the TAMIO conference was held in Fort Worth, and TAMIO stands for the Texas Association of Municipal Information Officers. During the TAMI Awards ceremony, our communications and public engagement team brought home 5 awards. This is a big deal because we're judged against peers across the entire state of Texas. The TAMI Awards honor leaders in government communications in Texas, and this year's competition included about 658 entries in 29 categories from across the state. The team's wins include 3 first-place awards and 2 third-place awards of honor. Please raise your hands as I call out your name. First place, special publication for the Fort Worth Animal Care and Control Coloring Book, Allison Rich, who is a writer, Jason McGregor, who is a graphic designer. Our team had special assistance from several members of the code team who dreamed up the idea, Jeff Jones, Chris Lorette, Brenda Matuidi, Chris McAllister, and Brian Daughtry. I think we have some samples for you all. You all have them already, great.
Oh yeah, on the table.
First place for Marketing PSA 2050 Comprehensive Plan Moving a Million, it's Go Time, featuring Mayor Maddie Parker, Cameron Gorman, producer and editor. First place, regular or recurring program, Fort Worth Forward, episodes that featured The Worthy Co. and Printed Threads. Cameron Gorman, producer, videographer, editor. Grant Chaparro, videographer, editor. And Paul Trigona, videographer. Third place, Best Logo, Award of Honor, Tarrant County Heart Walk t-shirt, Jason McGregor, graphic designer. Third place, Educational PSA Award of Honor, Why Our Fire Trucks Are White, Cameron Gorman, producer, editor. Grant Chaparro, videographer, footage, and had provided footage of our fire trucks. We actually brought some of our awards with us in case you'd like to see them, because they are really a testament to the work that the team does, and the fact that we really stood up against our peers all across the entire state of Texas. So please join me in congratulating our talented CPE team for representing the city of Fort Worth at the highest level and bringing home these well-deserved honors. We look forward to continuing to create content that reflects the larger Fort Worth community and helps bridge the gap between communication and education for all of our residents. We'd love to have you come join us for a photo. Don't stand in the back. I know what you do.
While everybody's making their way back, I want to introduce Holly Moyer, our interim director of HR, to introduce a few people, including an assistant director.
Good afternoon, Holly Moyer, assistant director, but I'm interim right now. Anyway, I'm excited to share this opportunity with you to give an internal promotion to Joanne Hinton. She may seem familiar to you. She was our benefits manager since 2017, and she's been with the city since 2012. So we're excited to have her as part of our assistant director over the risk, wellness, and benefits area. And just a little bit about Joanne. Joanne has a bachelor's degree from the University of Alaska. Pretty cool. But she also has a master's degree from the University of North Texas in Library of Science. So Midori, please don't take it. Just saying. And she's a certified employee benefits specialist. And so she has over 20 years of human resources experience, some of it in public and private sector, one of them being the Seattle University, and some private areas as well. But her focus has been in the benefits and wellness area and risk. So we're excited to have her as a promotion here. Just a couple of things about her. She is a great crafter. I'm just going to say, she's just amazing what she can do with that. She also, as a benefits manager, just one thing I want to note is that she brought a lot of innovative programs to the city, and I just want to recognize her for that as well. And so she's been with us as an assistant director since June, and I would like to let Joanne go ahead and speak for a little bit.
I don't really have a whole lot to say. But thank you. I'm pretty excited to now be higher, I guess, in the system. And during the United Way, I will probably have a couple different craft items up for auction if you would like to contribute to the city's United Way program.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you. As we move along, I can promise you no one has ever articulated the words "is a very talented crafter" about me. So I will be watching to see what she can do. That's very impressive. I must also say that the job that your team does, I remember last year when Miss Tanisha was terminally ill, your team was amazing in making sure her family had all those resources. And I just wanted Joanne to know that, how meaningful it was to our staff. And you do that every single day for countless city employees when it really is difficult for their families. So can't think of a better person that's more deserving. Congratulations.
Holly, do you have one more introduction, or is that postponed? The lead of the experience, go ahead.
So yes, I'm excited about this recognition of Lead the Experience program. A few weeks ago in June, we had talked about emerging leaders. This is leading the experience. So these are our managers and executives that are going through this Lead the Experience program. This program itself was created by Shannon and Luz through the Franklin Covey program. And so the program itself has 4 different objectives, and this was the 8th month program. See, Shannon's bringing up our graduates here. So they took a deep dive into what's called inspiring trust, which is basically leaders owning character and competencies, the credibilities that allow leaders to intentionally build a culture of trust. Creating vision, which is effective leaders create a shared vision and strategy, communicate to others, and join them on the journey. Executive strategy, think big and execute their vision and strategy through completion with and through others. And then also coaching potential, developing their leadership potential in others and improve performance through constant feedback and coaching. So they strengthen their connections through a lasting relationship. And of these co-hosts here, I would like to bring up David Lewis, who is really a sponsor of this program, and give a little bit more details about the program.
Thank you, Holly. I had the pleasure of co-facilitating this course with Shannon. The timing is great, as we spoke this morning about the budget impacts and do we have reductions to training. This is just one example of the great job that our Human Resources Department does in capitalizing on some of our internal resources to be able to do some of these. Rather than sending these outstanding people to a conference and spending all the money, we were able to facilitate this leadership internally. All of these people were selected by their directors and nominated for this course. So these are some of the city's future stars that we look forward to becoming assistant directors and directors down the road. And this course was particularly important for me as I go through my journey becoming a new director and being reminded of some of the principles and some of the processes that we can take to do that. So it was very important. One of the byproducts of a course like this is is the networking that they get to do. A lot of these people are meeting new people, and I've seen firsthand how we've been able to reach to people that have been in this course. It's a lot easier whenever you know the people rather than reaching out, hey, I have an issue I need to talk to you about. So when you know them, that's a big part of this. And one of the things we did on the last day of class, I said, raise your hand if you don't want anybody following up with you after this course and talking to you about things. And nobody raised their hand. So we're all holding them accountable for all of that. So we thank you for the continued support of classes like this, and want to recognize this outstanding first cohort of this class.
I just want to say congratulations, and one of the things, again, going back to this building, most of these folks, if not all of them, I know Keith's not, but are in this building, and being able to do these classes are much more efficient, much more effective, and then they do meet each other that they might have not ever had the opportunity to have that kind of relationship, and so when they need something from a different department, they know exactly who to go to. Somebody's going to pick the phone at the first time. All that provides efficiencies and effectiveness in the city that otherwise wouldn't be there. So congratulations to all y'all.
Appreciate y'all.
Shannon would like a picture here real quick.
That completes our organizational updates and employee recognitions. I'll move forward to informal reports. The first informal report is on city facilities and the ADA compliance. Marilyn Marvin's here to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yes,
Councilmember
I
Nettles.
do. I want to, I know, had the opportunity to meet with Val and the other day. Do you have that slide? Well, we're working on the slide for the different communities that are in the two different codes for the ADA compliance.
Yes, sir. So they are part of the IR. There's a table for community centers and a table for libraries that shows you which ones are ADA compliant and which ones are grandfathered.
Okay, and briefly, the ones that are grandfathered, such as the issue I had at Holland Hills for the ramp on the back door, how are we able to fix that issue?
So as we get information like the one you brought to us last week, we have the team working on those to take care of those items that had been grandfathered in, and we'll handle those as requests come in, but we're also putting together a plan for the community centers and the libraries that will be done October 31st with a priority list and a timeline of how we will take care of all of those grandfathered items to bring them up to current ADA standards. And then for the rest of the general fund buildings that are grandfathered, we'll have a plan by February 27th of 2027. I'll get it out in a minute, 2026.
And so so one of my concerns, council, I was looking at in Holland Hills, our senior part that a lot of our senior meet is in the community room, and they brought to my attention if there's a fire, they couldn't go out the front door where it is ADA compliance. They can go out the back door, which is not ADA compliance, and so that was a big concern. So they was able to put together a table that showed us the grandfather bills in some of the other districts, and I think it may be important that you guys go through and see if it affects your neighborhoods as well. But thank you so much for the thorough information.
You're welcome.
Marilyn, when you go through and do that prioritization, will you look at which of these facilities are voting locations?
Yes,
Because,
ma'am.
I know that was an issue with one of my community centers this past time. People are just so used to voting at the same places. I don't want to see that happen.
Absolutely. So when we receive information from Tarrant County, they go out and they look at our facilities based on today's requirements, as they should. Then we try to not try. We fix those items unless it's something really major so that we can continue to vote in those locations. But yes, ma'am.
Marilyn, would it be possible to, you don't have to do another IR presentation, but just to update this chart with a year that each of these buildings were dedicated? I'm just curious.
Yes, absolutely. And I can send it to you.
Okay, and the rest
To all
us
of you,
Be curious about. I'm just kind of curious what the ages are. Thank you.
Sure can.
Thanks, Marilyn. Next up is regarding our community partnership program and a recommendation to provide funds to the Mr. Fred Rouse Memorial. Christy Ann Simmons is here to answer any questions, and I'm told Mr. Fred Rouse III is in.
I didn't see Fred yet, but I thought he was here.
I don't.
Is Fred here? He's hiding in the back. Mr. Rouse, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate you.
I don't have any
Happy to
questions,
answer any
Jay. I just want to thank you. The community partnership funds comes out of the city management, and so we started years ago. It was one of the first things I did on council, so it's exciting to see it kind of come to fruition. And thank you for having that fund that allows us to do unique projects like this.
Sure. Thank you all.
Any other questions? No. Thank you.
Next IR is facilities renaming policy, and this is concerning the Police Department's South Patrol Division. Recommendation to be renamed. And interim Chief Aldridge is here to answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
All right. Next up is the 2025 report on the release of area from the ETJ, and DJ Harrell is here from Development Services. Okay. Next one is a MOU with Texas Health Southwest for indigent care. And Deanna Giordano is here to answer any questions, if there are any. Nope. Okay. Next is a citywide master thoroughfare plan amendment. Kelly Porter from TPW is here to answer any questions.
I have one.
Councilor Flores.
Kelly, I'm going to take the opportunity to, I guess, pick up where we last spoke, from RTC. I know that you were working on getting 10 Mile Bridge Road, added to the MTP. We've been having those discussions. A lot of that has been based on feedback that we received from community members as well. I know that you said that and please correct me if I'm wrong, the east segment was added, and I think you were trying to find a way to include the other segment, which is categorized differently.
Right, so the segment you're most concerned about to the east of, is it Huffines?
Yes.
That segment doesn't generate quite enough traffic just because it is so short for the thoroughfare plan, and it's also not on the functional classification system, the federal functional classification system. So any improvements on that are something I would work with Mary Hannah's team on the minor roadway side and our city traffic engineer to improve.
Okay. So probably, again, because of the categorization,
right,
not suitable for the MTP, but
right.
I think that you could probably work it in another category of road infrastructure need.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have, and thanks for the inclusion of those segments on 199 as well.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Crane.
Yeah, Kelly, thanks again for this. I don't see on here, and maybe I'm just not reading the parts correctly, but Alta Mesa, where it turns into Dirks Road right there. I haven't discussed with Councilwoman Hall, but it also would affect right there, her district, my district. It's TxDOT controlled. It runs by our Pecan Valley, runs into Benbrook, et cetera. With all the growth in the area, just start to look at that street. Southwest Christian is right there.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. And the last IR is an update on the fiscal year 2026 proposed tourism and public improvement district budgets. And Brady Kirks from the lab is here to answer any questions.
Brady, no? Okay.
And that's all I have, ma'am.
Okay, we'll keep rolling. Any changes or updates regarding membership on boards or commissions, or questions regarding City Council M&C log for the upcoming August 26th meeting? Yep. Okay. First up, Chris Poinsett. Welcome. We're so glad to see you. Our Chief Financial Officer for DFW International Airport, a presentation on the DFW International Airport proposed fiscal year 2026 budget.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here once again. Before I get started, I just wanted to kind of set the premise for this year's budget. You might recall back about 5 or 6 months ago now, American Airlines and DFW came into a new agreement to expand Terminal F from $1.6 billion to $4 billion, from 15 gates to 31 gates. That increased our capital program by about $3 billion. And we are starting to borrow money for that program. It's very exciting, but it is impacting our budget quite a bit. So real quickly, I will go through this fast. This budget reflects record passengers, record revenues, record net revenues or profits. It has an expenditure budget of $1.4 billion, which is an 11% increase, mostly due to debt service. The airlines will pay us about $756 million, primarily for landing fees and terminal rents, and that averages out to about $17 per in-plane passenger. This is kind of a trend you can see who had really substantial growth in 22 to 24, leveled out a little bit this year in 25, and we're expecting a 1.6% increase in passengers next year. Then as we look at our revenues from the DFW Cost Center, these are non-airline revenues, you can see substantial growth, 5.3% this year, and when you compare that to the growth of passengers at 1.6%, that's very positive. Here are the major categories in the non-airline revenues. Parking and concessions are driving most of the change. Parking is up because of the option for prepaid parking and a change in our fees for TNCs, and concessions is up primarily due to 3 new lounges that'll be starting next year. As we look at the net revenues from our DFW Cost Center, you can see in the dark blue what we get to put into our capital account, and the light blue is what we share with the airlines to reduce what they pay us. As we look at our budget, you can see operating expenses are up 5.8%. That is primarily employee-related. I'll go through that on the next slide. And gross debt is up $106 million, or 18%, as I mentioned earlier. So as we look at our operating expense walk forward, we're going from $715 million to $756 million. We've got $12 million of budget reductions, which are mostly one-time costs that we incurred last year. Employee-related increases relate to a 4% merit increase, some new positions, healthcare cost increases, and defined benefit plan cost increases. Our fixed contract increases are mostly associated with utilities and with facilities maintenance. We are taking over maintenance from American Airlines in Terminals A and C starting this year. We have some digital and technology investments. We have our CEO gets a contingency in the budget of $8 million, and we used that during the year for a variety of projects, so that's reinstalling that and then some other increases. Then as we look at the airline rates, both landing fees and terminal rents are going up because of all of our capital programs and the debt service. And this is the budget we're asking for you to approve, $1.45 billion. Our board approved the 1.44 number. We always ask for a $10 million contingency outside the rate base that the board of directors at DFW would need to approve for us to use. And we always share with you the tax sharing that the owner cities receive from the host cities of Irving, Capel, Grapevine, and Euless. The revenues are split between the host city gets 1/3 and 2/3 go to the owner cities. And then the owner city split is based on the ownership percentage, except for the rental car center, which is shared equally. You can see that it was almost $30 million in total revenue sharing, which was an 8.2% increase, and the shares for Dallas and Fort Worth there. That's a very quick, high-level overview of our budget. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Chris. Questions from council? There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for being here. Council will move next to our Vision Zero Safety Action Plan. Chelsea St. Louis, Transportation Public Works Senior Capital Projects Officer. Hello.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Is the presentation loaded? Good afternoon again. I'm Chelsea St. Louis. I work in the Transportation and Public Works Department. And today I'm presenting on the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan that we've been working on for the past year and that we will be recommending for council adoption at the end of September. I'm joined here with our consultant, Tool Design Group, Nan Jiang. She's in the audience and can assist with any questions that may arise throughout and after the presentation. So I'll start with just a background on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program, which funded development of the action plan. And then I'll move into a definition of Vision Zero and why it's important for the city, and then provide a high-level overview of the Vision Zero action plan development activities and highlights from the plan. So again, the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant was used to fund development of the action plan. That grant program is administered by the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration. And the point of that grant program is really to support the National Roadway Safety Strategy. They don't call it Vision Zero, but it's essentially the same concept. They're focused on eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries nationwide. So with that grant, we were awarded over $524,000. We are, as I mentioned, looking forward to recommending plan adoption at the end of September, which is a requirement of the plan. And so this plan is really important because it makes the city eligible for federal implementation dollars. And so we look forward to moving forward with this plan and all the great stuff that's in it. So what is Vision Zero? Again, Vision Zero is really a strategy to eliminate traffic fatalities and serious injuries using a safe systems approach. And I like this graphic on the right because to me, this reads as this is shared responsibility. We only get to safety if we're all working on safety. So we have to design the roadways in a way that accounts for the fact that people will make mistakes on our roadways, but it shouldn't cause them to lose their lives when they make a mistake or be seriously injured. And so that's really what safe systems is really all about. Traffic safety is a national problem. It doesn't always get promoted as such, but these numbers are very stark. I thought they were a mistake initially. So in 2023 alone, almost 41,000 people died in the US on our roadways. In Texas, lives lost represented 10% of that. Over 4,000 people died in Texas in 2023. And in the city of Fort Worth, 123 people died. And on average, every year in Fort Worth, we have a little over 100 people dying on our roadways. And so this plan is about what our strategy is going to be over the next 25 years to get these numbers down to zero. So that's our goal. The Safety Action Plan aligns with the Master Transportation Plan, which is also currently in development. These goals you see on the screen represent the 6 goals of the Master Transportation Plan. Please note that number 6, the equity goal, is changing to community. But the action plan supports the first goal, safety first. So as part of our grant, we were required to look at a citywide analysis of crash data, regardless of roadway ownership. So we looked at 2019 through 2023 data, which is summarized in the table below. I thought these numbers were a mistake again because they're very high. So there were 68,936 crashes in Fort Worth over a 5-year period. 2,589 of those crashes resulted in a fatality or serious injury. As you can tell in the third column, bicycle, pedestrian, and motorcycles represented only 4% of crashes, but they represented about 34% of killed and serious injury crashes. So we really want to focus on those vulnerable roadway users in our strategy as we move forward with the plan. Some other key findings in terms of tech stop facilities, those facilities represent 84% of vehicle miles traveled and a little over half of the killed and serious injury crashes. Non-text dot roadways only account for 16% of vehicle miles traveled, but 47% of KSI crashes. Fort Worth has the highest proportion of commercial vehicle and large truck crashes compared to the six largest cities in Texas, but we also have the most freight traffic. So we did normalize that information. And then also young adults aged 15 to 34 represent a large proportion of people involved in crashes overall, 46%, and 49% of people killed. Speeding and distracted driving, we know that this is an issue anecdotally and intuitively. We know this is an issue and it bears out in the data as well. Driving under the influence and lack of safety restraints, seatbelts, they aren't top contributing factors, but when people aren't wearing their seatbelts or they're driving under the influence, it's a high likelihood that there will be severe outcomes from that. And lastly, we utilize the Centers for Disease Control Social Vulnerability Index to look at how these crashes are impacting vulnerable communities. And we saw that 60% of these total crashes and killed and severe injury crashes are occurring in these census tracts with vulnerable populations. So taking into account the 5 years worth of crash data that we evaluated, we identified roadways with a higher frequency of fatal and serious injury crashes to develop a high injury network. So there is one overall high injury network that identifies something like 380 roadway segments in the city. To the right, that's just a snapshot of the pedestrian high injury network. So that's not the complete high injury network shown there. But we did break out each of the modes for the high injury network. And then going from those maybe 380 roadway segments, we did a deeper dive and we looked at how we were going to prioritize all of those segments to figure out which ones were the highest priority. And so we looked at crash history, the characteristics of the roadway, the functional class, land use context, where are the traffic demand generators, and also overlaid that with the Centers for Disease Control Social Vulnerability Index. And we also gave additional points if a segment was located on more than one modal high injury network. So if it was on the pedestrian and commercial vehicle high injury network, it got higher points. And so these are this is a list of high injury network corridors that we decided to do roadway safety assessments on. You can tell, or maybe not, from the list, but there are a few locations on the list that overlap with neighborhood improvement program areas, specifically Sharondale Street, Northwest 14th Street, as well as West Seminary Drive. And I thought that there was another one, but I may have mistaken. And so pretty much what happens with these roadway safety assessments is a multidisciplinary team goes out into the field, evaluates existing conditions, and then provides recommendations on what traffic safety countermeasures we can implement to reduce the crash incidents along those corridors. And this is a snapshot of what you can find in the plan. So we developed these profiles for each of those corridors. So you'll see traffic volumes, the speed limit, sidewalk connectivity, signals and number of lanes, and then proximity of crashes on the corridor. And then you can see the breakdown of what the key contributing factors were, crash types, and also a breakdown of the fatal and severe injury crashes. And then there's another piece of the profile that gets into the actual recommendations that you can find on these profiles. And then there's also a benefit cost ratio that's provided, and that's based on TxDOT's Highway Safety Improvement Program formula, which pretty much shows what the benefit of preventing crashes is over the total cost of the project. And so if you have a higher ratio, that means you get a greater return on the investment. And just a little bit about our public outreach. So we had a great opportunity to leverage the Master Transportation Plan outreach efforts over this period because we were developing the plans concurrently. So we did 3 rounds of open houses. This says 2. 3 rounds of open houses in summer and fall of 2024, and 1 this past spring. We had over 300 attendees. We had 13 pop-up events, and we deployed a survey that received over 1,000 responses. We also convened a community and technical advisory committee, and we also had a Vision Zero Safety Action Strategies workshop. And within that workshop, the Community and Technical Advisory Committee actually helped us prioritize the 34 action strategies that you find in the plan. These were some of the key areas that the public is concerned about from the outreach that we did: aggressive driving, speeding, red light running, large trucks on city streets, transit facilities, missing sidewalks. These are all common and recurring themes throughout a lot of the outreach. And so quite a few of the recommendations in the plan reflect those concerns. And so in a nutshell, taking together the crash data analysis from the 5 years, in addition to public feedback, we developed really about 50 action strategies. We ran that through the filter of having the technical and community advisory committees review those action strategies to get it down to 34. And so this is a breakdown of what those areas, how many action strategies are within each of those areas. So the 4 areas that our action strategies focus on are a paradigm shift to the safe systems approach, which essentially means moving from a roadway user having to perform perfectly in our transportation system to remain safe versus the safe systems approach where we have this multi-pronged approach and system that regardless of whether you make a mistake or not, you're not going to die or be seriously injured. So that's what the paradigm shift is about. We have safe speeds, which in many cases is lowering speeds or creating speeds that are more appropriate for the land use context. And then we have reducing conflicts and adopting policies and programs. And in terms of our action strategies, this just shows an example of one of those strategies, safe speeds. So in the action plan, there are 5 safe speed actions. This is just one of them. And this focuses on de-emphasizing the 85th percentile approach to setting speed limits. I know every community meeting I go to, no one wants to hear that 85th percentile speed. People are driving that, which they don't think is reasonable. So we're trying to move away from that approach to a more holistic approach to setting speed limits. And so for all of the action strategies, you'll see the focus area, the time frame, and the agencies that are involved in making that action possible. And then lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about traffic safety education because this isn't quite emphasized enough in a lot of Vision Zero safety action plans. Going back to us taking 25 years to get to zero. We didn't get here overnight. It's going to take time. And so focusing on education will really help us to create that safety culture, to make sure that over time we're implementing sustainable solutions and we're getting community buy-in on everyone really engaging in more safe behaviors on the roadways. So none of this matters if our behaviors don't change. And so we want to make sure that we're educating and making the public aware throughout the year, not just on, the walk to school days or the bike to school days. So for example, our school crossing guard program manager this summer, he went out to summer camps at our recreation centers to teach kids about crossing the roadway safety and the importance of crossing guards. So we want to create year-round programming that gets at this traffic safety education piece. And with that, I believe that's the last slide. So our proposed plan adoption is September 30th, and we're required to submit the final plan to FHWA by November 17th. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions, Council? Councilor Flores and Councilor Larsdorf and Peoples.
Chelsea, thanks for the presentation. Just to be clear, you've been looking at this in a 5-year window, is that correct?
Yes.
Vision Zero? Okay. And so you've been taking data, you've been making assessments, and then now you're proposing to us that you're going to implement these to hopefully reduce some of the issues that you're seeing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just so that I'm clear, I think there was a graphic here, the circular graphic, that identified post-crash care.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then, is that the same as post-collision action plan? I mean, they one and the same?
Potentially, yes. So it's really looking at our response to crashes.
Right, okay. And then a final question that I have. One stat stood out for me. I think you had said highest proportion of commercial vehicle and large truck, accidents compared to other cities of comparable size to Fort Worth. Mm-hmm. What can you share generally? I mean, are there any particular routes, locations where you see this repeating?
I have a data dump in my brain right now.
I mean, that's
well,
call it. I mean, you can share.
I can't recall off the top of my head, but the great thing is that, so there was a lot of technical data that went into the plan, and so we've posted all of the appendices, which includes that information on the website. So I can pull that report and provide to you specific information on that. So we have a truck traffic evaluation report that I can share.
That really stood out to me, and so I'd like to see what it looks like. But that's it. Thank you.
Councilor Larsdorf.
Thank you, Mayor. With this Vision Zero, and I see Chief in the background, what collaboration is there with our PD? Because I know whenever we talk about education, I think enforcement's a lot of it. I know recently on public safety, we're going to be getting a presentation at some point on enforcement plans on traffic, because I know for District 4, and I'm sure it's the case with all my colleagues, they want to see more, not just patrol, but more traffic enforcement. That's a huge complaint. I know growing up in Garland, there's one stretch in Rolette, it didn't matter if you're going 2 over or 20 over, you're getting a ticket every single time. Mm-hmm. And it was just that reputation. So no one sped. So with that being a major concern here, what collaboration is there between Vision Zero and the PD on the enforcement, especially in some of these high threat areas? Like I noticed in some areas on the highway, they have those high threat corridors where the fines are double if you're caught speeding there. Is there anything we can do within the city for more enforcement in those particular areas where it's like guaranteed, like do not pass go, do not collect $200, like it's huge fines for those specific areas?
I think that's something that we can pursue in terms of so there is one action strategy that's related to creating slow zones. So that's one perspective. I think the one you're talking about is like safety corridors. I've seen those a lot where the fines increase. Those would fall under kind of the policy area that obviously it would take, city council to help us implement those types of strategies. Other than that, we have a pretty close relationship with PD. I think within the last 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, we met with all of the neighborhood police officers to just share information about the department, each of our divisions. And so usually when there's a request that comes in, we're usually in touch with the neighborhood police officer. They're giving us information about what they've seen in the field. We can work with PD as well on increased enforcement because they also get their, I believe it's the STEP grants, and that's for usually for specific times of the year. And so we can work with Chief Aldridge and the neighborhood police officers and the traffic division specifically to target areas for enforcement. We'll probably start with, like you mentioned, those high injury network, the priority areas first, and then kind of fan out to other areas as needed.
Okay, I know those grants are great because I know the residents notice when they see the police officers out there. It's definitely noticed and it helps, and then you no longer see them, and then they go back to speeding again. So a more prolonged, persistent presence, I think, is what's really sorely needed. And I can't speak for my colleagues, but whenever it comes to the policies that you were just speaking of, I would love to see some of those presented for us to, because I don't see anyone here arguing against any of those, especially in the high injury network areas where there's serious injury or deaths. I don't think you're going to find anyone who's going to argue against that.
Yeah, and I think as part of the plan as well, our hope is to help PD in terms of managing the community's expectations, because sometimes we'll come with the data isn't enough, and they want police officers out 24 hours a day to do enforcement. You may find one vehicle, two vehicles speeding, but that's really not a threshold for us to implement, capital infrastructure. And, as they're prioritizing different calls, speeding may not be the highest priority for them at that time. And so our goal is through education, through capital investments, through really just working more with the community, making sure people are aware of where the areas of highest safety need are, so that even when we are engaging PD, it's really in those areas where they're really, really needed, and not necessarily in areas where the data doesn't show that there's an issue, most of the day.
And I'm all for the education piece. I think that's incredibly important. I think at these meetings that we'll have the community come to and that we're talking to, they're usually not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's those who would never even engage in any sort of dialogue. They're the issues. And me trying to educate my now 3 teen drivers in the house how important it is. And I got my first ticket in the school zone whenever I was 16, and I will never forget that, and I will never speed in a school zone ever again. Sometimes you just got to hit them in the pocketbook, not necessarily just the Braden Housing Group. But thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Peoples. Dara, make sure your mic's on. I apologize. Thank you. There you go. Is the light on? There we go.
Okay. First, I wanted to thank you for taking what could be a sobering and what is a sobering and depressing subject and presenting us with a very well thought out plan that shows light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not sure that I could do this because it is sobering. And so I wanted to thank you. But the other thing I just wanted to do, this is the petty Patty in me. Go to page 6. You don't have to change the word equity to community. I think equity in this case is a good use of the word.
Thank you, Councilmember Peoples. Anyone else for Chelsea? No. Thank you very much.
Very good presentation.
We'll move to the next presentation, updates to the zoning ordinance and transportation impact fee program. Lysandra Stringfellow, I think, is leading us in this one, and Jennifer Roberts. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
All right. I think we wait. There it goes. Did I throw things off by going to the wrong podium? Okay. Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Roberts. I am one of the Assistant Directors in Development Services. I'm up here today. I only have just a few slides. In my capacity as Assistant Director, I'm the administrator of the Transportation Impact Fee Program, and some of the legislation that was passed in the 89th legislature this year impacts that program. The bulk of the presentation will be given by my colleague, LaShondra. And still come up here and introduce herself. So in her capacity, she is over all of our zoning and planning work. There it goes. Okay. So the bills that we'll be looking at this afternoon are the bills listed on the screen. So there's 7 of them. And of course, they impact the different areas covered by the Development Services Department in different ways. Can I just, oh, now I'm drawing on things. Can you erase my big red line, please? I don't know how I did that. We'll just keep going. We're going to wing it. All right. So Senate Bill 1883 substantially impacted the impact fee program. There, 2 departments have impact fee programs, Development Services and the Water Department. The Water Department has graciously entrusted me with talking about how it impacts them, but we'll focus mainly on the transportation side of the house because that's where I'm most familiar. The impact fee program was impacted by, I'm going to say impact like 57 times, by Senate Bill 1883 in a couple of ways. In particular, it adds a financial audit to, excellent, thank you, now to the impact fee program. So then whenever we make any changes to the collection rate, there will be a financial audit included in that process of updating the study and all of the service units. It also adds an additional 120 days to our overall public comment period in 2 60-day increments. This is a really great improvement because it allows us to get more feedback from our community. So not only our residents, but also our interested parties. So all of our different boards and commissions. Now, there are some advisory committee changes. This predominantly impacts the transportation impact fee side of the house. The City Plan Commission can no longer serve as the advisory committee for the transportation impact fee program. So we will be coming to you with some ordinance changes to address that. The new commission will need to be at least 50% represent the real estate, development, or building industries. Previously, that was 40%. That increased. So then there'll be ordinance updates to establish these advisory committee criteria. So we'll be putting these in the ordinance themselves. Previously, the Water Department had some resolutions that covered this, and so we're going to pack it into the ordinance so that it's easily accessible and viewable by anybody who's interested. The intention is to have the members be nominated at large, but appointed by council. The Transportation Impact Fee Capital Improvements Advisory Committee will be 7 regular members with 2 alternates. The Water Impact Fee Committee, which is called the Capital Improvements Plan Advisory Committee, we had to make them different just for fun. That will be made up of 8 members, including 1 representative from the ETJ. Next slide, please. Oh, no, I can do it. Hold on. There we go. Now, Senate Bill 840, which will be discussed in further detail by LaShondra, it impacts the impact fee program by expressly stating that a city cannot apply an impact fee on land where a building has been converted to mixed-use or multifamily residential use, so a change of use. This aligns already with the existing program, and so from the impact fee, the transportation impact fee side of the house, we will be making some very minor ordinance updates just to make sure that it is crystal clear that we are in compliance with Senate Bill 840. So this slide represents the ordinance changes contemplated, which will be brought to council on the 26th. So there's a couple of areas. One, in the definitions, we will be removing our definition from the CIAC from there and moving it into a later section so that we can add all of the details about how that commission has functioned and appointed, et cetera. Then we'll be updating our change of use definition and our shell building definition, again, to better align with 840. Then later on in the ordinance,
We will put in all the details, establishing the committee, so we'll be kind of expanding that definition with more detail. And then last but not least, we will be updating Section 173 to again clarify that we are in alignment with 840. For the water impact fee program, they will be making a minor change, again, to establish the functions of the CIPAC, where previously that was all done by resolution. So that will be now packaged again in the ordinance. All right, now I'm going to hand it over to LaShondra.
Good evening, good afternoon, City Council. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the impacts of Senate Bills 840 and also SB 2477 with regards to multifamily and mixed-use residential developments. And so these two definitions that you're seeing here are specifically terms that are in that new state law. So one of the things that we've been working with the city attorneys on is determining how much do we want to let the state law impact some of the definitions that we already have in our code. So that's one of the things that we're still working with the city attorneys on. But so whenever we talk about these changes, these are definitions that the state has already defined for us. So these are the impacts that are going to be on our code. So first, we're just going to talk about our standard zoning districts. So multifamily and mixed-use residential then must be allowed by right in these districts. So that's going to be ER, which is our neighborhood commercial restricted, E neighborhood commercial, FRF, intensive commercial, and light industrial. So you notice the two non-residential districts that we don't have up there are J and K, which is our more heavy industrial districts. And that's because that's an exemption that the state has made, that wherever there's within 1,000 feet of heavy industrial uses, we do not have to allow multifamily and mixed-use residential. So we will also be making those delineations in our land use chart as well as throughout our zoning code. Also, our historic districts have also been, and not just a historic district, but you may be aware that in our downtown, we also have some parcels with structures that have historic landmarks and historic designations. So even though you're not in a historic district, those parcels, will also be protected from this particular state law. And so this is really a conceptual map here. One of the things that we just did not have time to do is, go through every planned development district, which may include some commercial. But this gives you a general idea of, across the board where you could possibly see more multifamily and mixed-use residential where it would not have been allowed today. So basically, this is all those commercial districts that I just named to you. So it's pretty expansive. And so now I want to talk a little bit more about how this is going to impact some of our mixed-use districts and our form-based codes. And so we already have our standard MU1 and MU2 districts, but also where we have a proximity test and we have location requirements for our Camp Bowie form-based code near Southside, Stockyards, and Trinity Lakes. So if someone wants to do a multifamily component, now we could not require them to do non-residential. Now, they can do mixed use. However, that mixed use, you have to have a minimum of 65% residential in order to do a mixed use development. So that does change, again, those codes as well. So we're also going to have to amend those codes with reference to these specific uses. And so these are other things that the bill requires. And this was talked about a little bit earlier, but in terms of density, the highest residential density in the city would have to be allowed. And currently that is H zoning, which is, I shouldn't say it's unrestricted. There is a restriction, but the restriction is that it's unlimited. However, there is a big however here. that's really going to end up being capped based on the height, because we still can enforce the applicable height of the district. So what that means is whatever someone decides that they want to do multifamily in an E district, they're going to be limited to, I believe that's a 45-foot height. Now, another really huge change that is unfortunate about this is in terms of setbacks, and where this really is going to come into play is when you have these commercial districts that are next to residential. In these particular instances, if beforehand we'd be able to require a greater setback based upon the height, in this instance we can no longer do this because the maximum setback now is going to be 25 feet. Also, with regards to parking, maximum requirement now is 1 space per dwelling unit, where beforehand it would have been 1 space per bedroom, typically, you know, in our standard multifamily districts. So, another, you know, pretty big change for us is it's going to be administrative approval now, and the bill is requiring administrative approval for anything that typically goes to UDC, as well as Downtown Design Review Board. We had instances, especially with DDRB, where any type of new development or major conversion had to go before that board, for example. The city could no longer require that. Also, you all are used to seeing PD site plans, and again, I just want to say this is PD site plans for multifamily and mixed-use residential. Now those PD site plans, not only will they not be going to zoning commission, but they won't be coming to you, the city council. And another thing that we're still working with the city attorney on is it possibly may also eliminate consideration of waiver requests. Our Urban Design Commission is the group that mostly sees those waiver requests, and so there's a possibility that we may not even be able to take those particular items to the UDC and the DDRB as well. So there is also a distinction between what's required for new construction and conversions. And so while SB 840 also talks a little bit about conversions, SB 2477 went a little bit more in depth. And so what I did think it was important to note, like, you know, not everything is lost. For new construction, we can continue to regulate facade design, fenestration, and building entries. We can continue to regulate open space and urban forestry. And then we also have other items related to pedestrian-oriented form, like sidewalks, lighting, street trees, benches, and bicycle parking, and then as well as signage. And so, you know, one of the things that we may want to look at is looking at some areas in the city where maybe beforehand certain districts didn't have these requirements, but maybe now we want to look at enforcing some of these in some of our standard commercial when you're going to be doing multifamily. But that's something we'll talk about a little bit in the months and weeks to come. So building conversions. So if there is a building that is being used for office, retail, or warehouse, it can be converted to one of those multifamily or mixed-use residential uses if it was constructed at least 5 years before the conversion. And this is a list of things that we could not regulate. Also, the design standards in these urban design districts also are going to be impacted in our form-based districts. We look at our downtown urban design district. Those items typically, again, would go to our design or our downtown design urban review board. Now we would not take those. Camp Bowie, near South Side, Stockyards, and again, Berry University. And so this is a map. I want to put a little disclaimer on this map as well. This is a map of everything that basically we're trying to bring out everything that was residential and that could potentially be impacted by this SB 15, which we're calling the small lot bill. But the disclaimer is that some of the items on here are currently parks. However, they have a residential zoning designation. So, you know, if the city were to sell that property for whatever reason, then it could possibly, you know, be converted to one of these small lot subdivisions. But this gives you a general idea of what we're looking at, and we were kind of shocked to see as many as we did. Somewhat centrally located, but again, some of those are parks. So mainly what you're looking at are, everything along the periphery of the city. And again, the bill is requiring the city to not be able to regulate parking in terms of requiring a garage or covered parking. Again, we see the 1 space per dwelling unit requirement, no regulation on bulk and wall articulation. That would be pretty major if we were talking about some of our foreign-based districts, in particular Berry University. We can still regulate that in Berry because none of those would come under this requirement, but we could not have that regulation again for anything that meets the requirement. And then also in this particular bill, in terms of lot coverage, we are going to be limited to requiring no more than 30% lot coverage or permeable surface, whereas in some of these we have a higher standard. So now we're going to talk about zoning notice and protest. And so the one big thing, or two things actually, that I would like to point out here that I feel like is the biggest change for us is that if there is a zoning protest of a zoning case that is residential in nature, now that threshold for that opposition goes from 20% of property owners within 200 feet to 60%. And then also the other change is with our zoning signs. And so currently the size of our zoning signs are, in terms of width, are a little bit smaller. And so we're also going to have to change the type of signs that we're posting. And so we're talking internally about how we want to do that, because not only is the size of the sign changing, but beforehand, if a sign happened to be knocked down or, someone willingly removed a sign, we could still proceed with the public hearing. Now with the way the state law has been written is if the sign is taken down, we cannot hold that public hearing. So the sign has to stay up. And so that's an additional requirement, now on staff to make sure that that sign is up. So we're, again, talking internally about how to make sure that gets done properly. Next, home-based business.
Can I interrupt you for just a quick second? When you say the sign cannot be taken down, I mean, for how long does it have to be down before it's deemed, that you trip that threshold requirement?
That is a good question, and it's probably a better question for the city attorneys. It's one that we're going to be working with them on, because that's also going to have to be another change in our zoning code, because now we actually have it written in that if a sign is down, we can proceed. And so that's something that we're going to have to figure out, like what is that threshold?
And it's still the TPW department that's charged with putting the signs up and taking them down?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so home-based businesses. So this wasn't in my opinion, this wasn't a huge change for us. We have, I feel, in my opinion, a pretty good extensive regulations in terms of home-based businesses and what can and can't be done. I think for us, the rule to remember here is if we change anything, make sure that we're not going to be in contradiction to the state law. But for the most part, we're pretty much operating consistent with the law. We'll make sure that there's nothing we don't need to tweak, but we're in pretty good shape, we feel, there. Okay. Now, outdoor storage containers. So this allows outdoor storage containers at commercial facilities. Currently, how outdoor storage works, it depends upon which district you're in, whether or not it's allowed, the amount that you're allowed to have. They also have to be stored. And so this is, though, referring to these bulk containers that whenever there is, first of all, it defines what a bulk container recycling facility is, and then it allows cities to adopt an ordinance regulating those. And so I want to talk now about planned community engagement. Actually, this was the first thing that staff thought about is we said, how are we going to, not only inform, we need to talk to our boards and commissions, of course, first of all, but we have so many engaged neighborhood groups and stakeholders. Some of those have actually already reached out to us, so we're going to be meeting with those groups within the next couple of weeks. But then also we feel like it's important to get the word out to neighborhood groups, and then making sure those neighborhood groups get the word out, to the folks in those neighborhoods. So we've talked about maybe having just one large open house where we'd invite those neighborhood groups, to come in and, talk to us about some of their concerns, because I believe that they'll even have some ideas on some things that, we may want to do in the future to try to mitigate, some of the concerns.
Would you please include us in that? I would like to attend the neighborhood association meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So these are some important dates to tell you all about. So, one thing that I probably should have put on here is the two bills that I feel, or maybe three bills that I feel like are the most impactful for us. Those were not signed by the governor until June 20th, or somewhere around that date. And so, some folks may say, well, why weren't we on this earlier? Well, June 20th is, hasn't been a lot of time to do a lot of work. So, we've been working, as fast as possible to try to figure out what some of these impacts are. In addition to that, we've been working with the city attorney, and city attorney has also been working with, some of our area cities, as well as us reaching out to those cities to kind of find out, how they're going to be regulating. Keeping in mind, of course, that each city is different. And so we've already had a couple of briefings with the boards and commissions. However, we just let them know what the bills were. We hadn't, really gone into a whole lot of detail about how the code's going to be impacted, because, we wanted to have this discussion with you all first today before we proceeded with making those changes. I feel like our next big thing that we're going to be doing is bringing forward to you all a resolution on August 26th. Again, just indicating the state, or indicating that the city, will be complying with state laws, and will also be adopting that impact fee ordinance amendment. The other big thing for us is, even though we won't have codes adopted, we're still going to be expected to comply by September 1. And so starting next week and the following week, we're going to be training staff, because it is a huge, change from what we've been doing. We also, we had initially scheduled community engagement for 9/1 through 9/5. We're going to do that, but we know we're going to have to extend that, right? So that's probably going to be happening the entire month of September. Then September 10th, the goal is to have something in front of the zoning commission. We're going to also be updating DAC a couple of times as our development advisory committee. And our plan currently is to have something to you all for adoption on September 30th. And I'm going to, in advance, ask for a little bit of grace in that, just because of the extent of the changes, and once we hear from some of the neighborhoods, we may not be able to get to 9/30, but for certain, you'll have something in October.
Okay, questions? Councilmember Hall.
Ms. LaShundra, I know that you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but with it being 2 weeks away, what does community engagement look like preliminarily to you?
Right. So a couple of things. I talked about, some of the stakeholders. We'll go to some of their meetings as we're invited. I've already been invited to come and speak with DFW, as well as the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber, and I'm probably missing a couple of others, but several have asked us to come and speak. So we'll be going to them, but in terms of the neighborhood groups, what we wanted to do, we have a registry of neighborhood groups. We were going to send out, an invite to them, inviting them to come and participate, in basically like an open house type meeting to learn more about these changes and how, they will be impacting, those neighborhoods. And so we'd have that meeting, we'd schedule it, so we'd probably be sending something out within the next couple of weeks. That's what we were thinking. Those actual meetings may not happen until that second or third week of September.
Being that there's going to be a resolution on this coming up in August 26th, it would be nice to just kind of have something on the books for them so that we're making a decision. Was this basically going to send an alert through our community? So it would be nice to have something not temporarily, but something on the calendar on when there will be an opportunity for them to hear more information about it, as opposed to making individual calls to our offices about more information.
For what excuse me, for what it's worth, we plan on also putting this information online on our website and sending it out to the interested parties that have registered for zoning notifications as well.
We'll figure out the date and make sure it goes out prior to the meeting next week.
Councilor Nettles?
Yes. You stated you're going to put forth a resolution that the city is going to be in compliance with the state law.
That's my understanding from the city attorney's office. They can speak a little bit more on that one, but
I just have a question. Do we commonly do that, or do we just follow state law?
We just follow state law. This is just a change, right? So we wanted to make sure that when somebody comes in to do something and we're not following what they're used to following, that we can say we have a resolution for the city council directing us to follow state law along with state law, right? Because all our ordinance, until this happened, all our ordinances are follow state law. Our current ordinances after the first is not going to be following state law. So we want to just be able to say legally, the council directed us to follow the new state law, and we're in the middle of actually amending all our ordinances so that we can comply with the ordinances, comply with state law. We just wanted something on the books.
So it's different.
Just didn't do it on our own. Yeah. So that the council gave us direction.
So basically it's different because our ordinance is not going to be following state law, so we're going to put a resolution.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Any other questions from council? Thank you very much, LaShondra. We appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move to one-time use of interest income. Christiane Simmons, our Fort Worth Lab Chief Transformation Officer, is going to present.
Okay. Everybody good?
Ready.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Christiane Simmons with the Fort Worth Lab. So I'm here to close us out in the middle of your long day today with a discussion on interest earnings and recommended uses. So, as you probably know, the city generates investment income by investing idle cash from operations, pay-go, bond funds, and compliance with state law and city policy. And there are a number of policies regarding cash and investment management in our financial management policies. But the primary thing you need to know is that we reserve interest income in particular almost exclusively for one-time needs based on those policies. And so we don't adopt budgets that are balanced based on interest income because, of course, that income can fluctuate widely based on what's going on with interest rates and the economy. So instead, typically the practice is around this time of year we bring you an update on actual interest earnings, along with some recommendations for how we can appropriate that funding. Some of the common uses at this time are addressing fund balance issues, so either purposely trying to grow fund balance like we're doing in the general fund, or if there are certain funds that have fund balance issues that are lagging behind, we usually would recommend addressing that with one-time money like this. Closing gaps on capital projects, and then other one-time contributions for capital projects, grants, purchases, et cetera. So one-time money. And to give you a bit of context on that, when I mentioned volatility, this is a 5-year history of interest earnings dating back to 2020. So the line on this chart represents the federal funds rate set by the Federal Reserve. So you can kind of see the correlation there between that rate and our interest earnings, right? It's a pretty clear it follows the stacked bar, or the bar chart there is our actual earnings year over year. So when the rate's higher, we've earned more interest. That's an obvious correlation. You'll see, for example, in 2021 and 2022, when the rate was sort of effectively near zero, we earned about $4 to $5 million. And then last year in 2024, when the rate was like 5%, we earned $30 million across that same group of funds. So that's what I mean when I say that it fluctuates really widely. Since the city doesn't have any control over the federal funds rate, we also, again, don't really rely on this source of income for balancing the budget, since it can vary so much. And then just one more chart for context. The bars here, same period of history, represent how our property and sales tax performed relative to budget in each of those same years. So like in 2020, we underperformed on sales tax and property tax mid-pandemic. But in the following 3 years, we had a recovery that was heavily correlated with the federal funds rate being so low. So rate low, more spending, you know that. So you can see now with the rate high, those two revenue sources are once again underperforming property tax and sales tax. You've heard that in recent budget and forecast projections. So another strong relationship here, just to give, again, some context about interest. So with that in mind, and knowing that the rate has been upward of 4% all year, we have another high year of interest earnings. So the fiscal year 25 forecast for interest income is $28.1 million. Now, I mentioned, I've been like hammering, like we only use this for one-time things. There's one caveat to that, which is that we do adopt a very small budget annually to partially cover the cost of a couple of employees who work primarily on debt, or in part for debt. These are employees primarily in finance, but also include some legal staff and Fort Worth lab staff. Our policies allow us to allocate the appropriate portions of those salaries, so we do that. So we remove that $500,000 from the available, then $28.1 million. So available for one-time needs, $27.6 million that we'll talk about today. So this is a quick summary, and I have a slide sort of for each of these recommendations, but this is the proposed use of those fiscal year 25 interest earnings, the $27.6 million. So almost half, about 44% of it, we're recommending to maintain the general fund balance at 22%, followed by $6.5 million to the Cowgirl Hall of Fame. You can see from there, won't have to read the whole table to you, but I'll proceed to the detailed slides unless you have immediate reactions here. So fund balance. The bulk of the recommended appropriation of interest earnings has to do with maintaining the general fund balance at 22%. So the city's goal is really to increase that fund balance to 25%, which would be 3 months of operating expenditures instead of the required 2 months of operating expenditures. We are not quite there. You can see the comparison there between what 22% versus 25% fund balance looks like, but we certainly don't want to go backwards either. And so staff recommends appropriating at least the $10.6 million to maintain that 22%, plus anything else that remains unassigned through this conversation. So right now, we kind of went down the list and there was a little bit extra, so we're saying we'll push all $12 million over, but you can kind of see how it breaks down there.
Can I ask why we're, from a policy perspective, why we're moving from 22% to 25% fund balance?
It's part of the long-term plan that the city has had to try to get to AAA bond rating, and the cost of funds ends up being lower, and all AAA bond-rated cities are at 25% minimum.
Good question. All right, second largest recommendation for allocation of interest is for the Cowgirl Hall of Fame. So for those of you who are here in April, the City Council adopted a resolution supporting this expansion project. And in that resolution, we committed for consideration of the $6.5 million in funding for capital cost. And so the Cowgirl Museum has, officially made that ask. So we believe that this is a good use of that one-time available funding since council supported that project back in April. Next, Panther Island. So staff recommends using $3.1 million in funds for direct costs of bridge projects. So these are the projects located at Commerce, Calhoun, potentially North Main Street, just depending on how the costs really shake out. But these costs include local match, so local participation for the contributions from COG and from TxDOT, as well as items like professional services, project management, inspection. And so this is one phase of ask for Panther Island. So another fund balance item here, this one regarding group health. The Group Health and Life Insurance Fund, you know this. We talked about this a little bit in budget last week, but this is the fund that administers health insurance for employees and dependents and life insurance for employees. The claims are currently outpacing the contributions. And so, employee premiums, for instance, aren't keeping up with actual medical and pharmacy cost. You can really see that noted in bullet 1. I don't want us to miss that. So also the table at the bottom, at the beginning of this fiscal year, their fund balance was $35.9 million. Their forecast for the end of this year is $23.8 million. So that's a $12 million use of fund balance. So you can see that they're kind of on the fast track to falling below their 25% reserve requirement, because that's a reserve requirement as an internal service fund. So this is part 1 of likely a 2-year restoration plan to get that fund balance back on track. And we also have to look at sort of the costs and how we're allocating those things. But this is a recommendation to help them into fiscal year 26.
Councilor Beck.
You go ahead and give and then I have some questions about the next slide.
This one. Okay. Yes, $2 million to City Hall floor 18. These funds would be used to complete construction and build out of the 18th floor. So we're coming up on the time where the tenant lease is ending and contractors will vacate that floor in the next couple of months. And so the idea is that we do the build out for that floor. Likely for the city manager's office to be relocated along with planning staff. You'll remember planning is moving over to the CMO and needs office space there. Homelessness, some of the other city management divisions. Question.
I have some real heartburn over this particular issue. I can't remember how long ago it was. We'll call it a couple years ago. Staff came back to this body and asked us for $50 million for City Hall. And because we were over budget what previous council had been told they were going to spend on this building. $50 million is a lot to be over budget. And I understand that some of that was out of our control, but here nor there, huge price tag. Did we not contemplate the remodel of this floor when we built out this very expensive redesign of this building? Can anyone answer that?
I believe that it was not part of it because the lease, there was a tenant in there, and their lease was going to go longer. They decided to terminate earlier.
How early are they terminating?
3 years.
So
believe it's
I'm
3
inferring here, does that mean you had anticipated, yes, you would remodel this floor, but it wouldn't have been until 27 or 28 based on that lease? Okay.
I wasn't here when all that happened, but I believe it wasn't part of the projections that they put forward at that time.
I'd like to know why not, because when that $50 million came to us, we were told that we're going to hold true to that $50 million, and now there's $2 more million coming into that.
Yeah, that's correct, Councilmember Beck. This 18th floor was not part of the scope that we gave to the Athenian Group and to Boca Powell and everybody else. It was not anticipated that we would be doing anything with that floor during the time period of this project.
Is that because of communication from the lessee at the time?
Correct.
I get that we had someone.
So it's really up to, it's really up to us if we want to do something with the floor now or we want to do it later.
Councilmember Peoples.
So what were their termination fees?
Termination fees?
The leasing, when they're ending
In terms of buying out?
Okay.
Buying out the lease? Yeah, I can look that up, check into that.
Okay, would you, because I think that's important to know.
They chose to get out of it. And one of the reasons it was here is because actually council back in the spring made the request that the city manager's office move up to this floor. The other alternative is I would recommend it just go to the health fund if we don't want to move down that road and shore up the health fund. But we put it on here because it's one-time money. It would only be used one time. And so the floor can be used for as currently as, storage or some other use like that. But that's why I included it, because it was a city council request back in the spring.
So let me be.
I know that Christiane is going to finish her presentation, but I think we should look at shoring up the health fund. That's concerning to me. But we'll, if you'll finish the presentation.
Councilor Beck, do you have another question at the moment?
No, I want to be clear that I want staff to have the adequate office space that they need. So if we need it, my real concern is that the cost of this building, and my concern that it's out of control. It felt out of control at 50, and to find out that an entire floor was not included in that scope, and I understand we had a lease, but we knew an end date to that lease, and so council was not given an accurate number of full readout, and I think staff owes it to us, and we owe it to our residents, our taxpayers, to be able to make those decisions. So it just feels like we just keep putting more money in that, and we don't have a handle on it. So maybe that's an IR. I'd like to know how much we spent total on this building.
Any other questions at the time? Councilmember Christiane, keep going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is my last slide. So our final recommendation is to allocate $871,000 in interest funding to the Child Care Associates Early Learning Center in Stop 6. So you might remember this was originally planned as part of the Stop 6 Hub, that community center project, and it was originally allocated $5 million in ARPA back in 2021 as a way of improving access to child care in District 5. So, but due to space limitations and competing demands at the hub, there was a pivot made, and they're now pursuing a standalone facility. And as a standalone facility, there are costs of land acquisition, site work, utilities that were not originally budgeted. And so staff has identified ARPA savings from other completed project that can be reassigned to this project. So that'll be a bit of the $1.5 million gap, $629,000 of it. The other $871 is where the interest would come into play. So kind of a two-pronged solution to fill that funding gap for Child Care Associates. And that is the end of my formal presentation. We can facilitate discussion, answer questions. What I'll say before that is the next steps of this would be typically, both of these MNCs are on your agenda for next week, August 26th, both the interest piece and then just related to that last item, the ARPA reallocation there for that last project.
So one option maybe is, would it work to, and this is a question for Christiana, for Jay, and for Leanne, does it work to separate all of the proposed interest income allocations that were proposed today, except for that $2 million that was proposed to the 18th floor? Allow us to have an additional discussion about that and walk through costs. It sounds like Marilyn probably has some numbers to provide council about what the lessee buyout was, that council can kind of look at those, that we don't delay the 26th vote, but we have that to talk about. And then to Councilmember Peoples' point, there may be some interest in actually putting that towards the fund balance for healthcare. Charlie.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, my questions would be for floor 18, certainly understanding if we were going to do it eventually anyways, I'm sure there's a cost savings in doing it now versus what construction will be in 3 years. But my questions were just on some of the other things that were on there, like I said, homeless on there. And this is other city priorities, like, I guess just more clarification on what does that actually mean?
Who would go there?
Bringing other departments on that floor?
Which is a
or-
good reason maybe to kind of put all that together in one, if that's okay, to work for everybody to do it like that.
Absolutely.
It was all the divisions that are now part of the city manager's office with the reorganization.
Would be up in that floor.
Different offices of the city manager's office, the terrorist group, homelessness group, the planning group that's moving in, all those with them would be on one floor together. But we're currently on one floor, but spread out in different divisions. Right. It's just the actual staff related to those functions.
And that might also allow you to walk through what the 14th floor would become at that point. So if we're good with that, council, maybe that allows us to have a bigger discussion about that particular $2 million, but move forward on these other items. Great. Okay, we'll keep going. Thank you, Christiane. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, council, any requests for future agenda items or reports from council? Councilmember Beck? Go ahead. Did you have one? Okay. No?
I did mine this morning.
Okay, I'm going for it. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah, okay, I just